This is a test. I'm not sure if anything is working. I'm going to go to my YouTube page in the background and see if this is doing anything at all. Oh, there it says that I'm here, and now I'm watching myself, and there's probably going to be a feedback loop. This is a test. I'm not sure if anything's working. Yeah, there it goes. I can hear myself talking. Hello, no one. Great. So I guess I'll keep this open. I'm going to be streaming. What am I going to be streaming? I'm going to be streaming some stuff. I'm going to be doing some code, some Scala code. Bill! Yay! Hi, how did you find me? Oh yeah, you subscribed to me. I must have told you. Welcome to my streaming voice, where I try to sound like I'm doing something meditative. Because it's very much not a meditative practice. I wonder how delayed I am. I'm going to unmute myself again. Bill! Oh, in the past, I've just realized your existence. So now I should expect to see you type something. I wait. I see nothing. Nice. Nice. Fancy. Oh, I closed a dockable window. No, I didn't want to do that. All right, let me make sure I'm not... I've got to close windows on my screen. That's why I have this weird mode. No incriminating information in the background. Yeah, just iTerm and OBS. Hey, Stuart. Stu Squared. Welcome. You seem to find me every time I stream. The streaming bond that we all share. Hope you're doing well. That's a great question. I have not announced what I'm working on. Very mysterious. Let me do that. Let me share my screen. Where is the button? Okay. First rule of me streaming is that I share all the windows you're not supposed to share when streaming. And so I'm often gonna just look at my chat here. I know I need a second monitor or to use my iPad, but I can't do that currently. I'll get better at this if I ever do this again. But so far I stream twice a year. I'm going to be working on, where'd it go? IntelliJ. Migraine. Yes, a minimal, modern, alliterative database migration tool. So I'm going to basically be trying to build a really MVP version of a flyway. Let's go to Twitter because I just posted a very brief question earlier today, which is hypothetically, if there were new, fully open source software, no damn paywalled features, Scala first database migration manager, what features should I add? What special stretch goals should I have? Do you like the version or the timestamp prefix for your little SQL files? Or should there be, a custom DSL like Active Record or Liquibase? And what should it be called? And I've decided temporarily on migraine. First I went with migrant, just trying to think of words that start with M-I-G-R, and maybe migrant might have too many connotations, associations. Migraine is negative, but that's kind of why I'm doing this, because I basically earlier today was trying to use Flyway, or maybe it was a few days ago, and realized that you have to pay them if you want a very basic stretch feature, which is the ability to what they have baseline migrations, which is just like being able to delete your old migrations. So if you have 1,000 migrations, being able to just at some point clear out the old cruft and just say, okay, we're starting from this snapshot of my database schema. So I hope that makes sense. And let me see if I'm... You seem to find me every time. There we go. Okay, I'm still talking in the recording. I wonder what's the most recent? Oh, okay. There we go. I'm a little behind. Great. So yeah, that's basically what I'm going to be doing. Hopefully over time I start talking like a normal person, but under the camera I become strange or self-conscious or something, and I talk differently. So we'll let that work itself out. Yeah, and some people had some other crazy ideas. Rob Williams shared this paper about automated testing, and it has like a royal seal here in some Swedish writing. So that's cool. Maybe that's going to be a stretch goal for now, my first goal, because it's hard enough to think and talk at the same time. Will be to just basically start from scratch. I was thinking of doing something more, proper, writing out some stuff, getting some practice, actually knowing what I'm about to do, and then recording a nice polished video. But I thought, I haven't streamed in a while, and it's easier to hit that big red button. Hello, hello. Greetings. Okay, this thing is definitely delayed by some amount. I don't know how much, but maybe only a few seconds. Anyway, so I should have a chat window on another computer, but I'm just gonna tab over to here. So, yeah, full transparency. Oh, look, we have 4 people. Yeah, exactly. Migraine. So what should this be? So if anyone has any strong opinions about database migration tools, please let me know. Hello, Anthony. Greetings. Wait a sec. Is that? Okay. No. Well, I don't know. I don't know you. I don't think, unless that photo. I used to work with someone named Anthony, but I don't think their last name was Vela. But I might know you from open source world. But greetings and welcome, either way. But you're probably not my old coworker. Ooh, it could just be. It could be me. It's very likely me. Yeah. If anyone else could tell me if my stream is choppy, I have not really configured OBS video bitrate. Is that really high? What should it be? I honestly don't know. Stream maximum video bitrate is 51,000, and I've gone with half of that. So I think that should be okay. Very fast. I don't know. No, I don't know what evolution is. I'm guessing that sounds like it's some kind of migration tool. So evolution, Scala, or obviously there's a gaming company. Oh, do you mean to play like evolutions? All these websites, so bright, so painful. So yeah. Okay, you create some ups. That's basically the idea. 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, and downs as ways of reverting them. Yeah. That's probably what I want to make. Something similar to this. Okay, so maybe it's just you, Stuart. I'm not sure. Not that I wish you a bad internet connection, but I'm sure your internet connection will improve, and my OBS skills are less likely to improve. Is this what you mean, Salah? The evolutions? But yeah, this is there are definitely a lot of tools. Maybe I should just name some and write some down. Just want to take some notes. The competition, or competitive analysis. So let's list some other tools. Well, there's clearly Flyway. There's a tool called Liquibase. These are both kind of Java things. There's Active Record. That's kind of my first experience. And that's a whole ORM as well, but it has a migration subset, and it looks like there's Play Evolutions. And there are definitely some other, okay, I'm not spelling correctly. There are definitely some other tools out there. Okay, for Play, yeah. So there's a bunch of prior art, and you know what? I haven't used much of Plays. Maybe that does more of what I want. But, I have very minimal needs. Like, part of the reason why I was frustrated is because there's a project that's using Flyway that I was poking around on. And in that project, at some point, you have a folder that basically looks like this. This is the Flyway model. Flyway. You have a folder. inside of your resources folder, some migrations, or I think it's DB migrations, doesn't really matter. And you have a whole bunch of version prefixed SQL files. And Flyway, what it'll do for you, the sheer complexity of this tool, is that it will run these SQL files on your database, one after the other, and just track basically what's the most recent version it's ran. So it'll run V1 and V2 and then track, okay, I've ran V2. And where does it track that? Well, it tracks that in a special something like Flyway schema history table in the very self-same database that you're running these migrations on, which is great. Because if you don't know, I'm sure most of you fine people do know, but if other people in the future decide to come back and watch this and they don't know, the whole purpose of this is that you want to be able to have some long-lived deployment with some long-lived database where you slowly change existing data, right? You're going to first, in the first 2 months as you're working just in your local development, you can all have just, hack on just this SQL schema directly. And just add tables, willy-nilly edit them. But once you actually finally deploy that schema that has a whole bunch of users, events, whatever other tables in there, and they each have, a bunch of records of real user data, then you probably want to be very careful about how you continue to change that database. And so the way that these tools work is it adds another secret metadata table, essentially, and you push up, along with your code, a list of SQL migrations, just basically SQL scripts, that it will run in order. And when you add a new migration and you push this to production, it's going to look in its metadata table, basically see that the most recent migration it ran was V2. And so it'll run from V2 on if it finds new migrations. And obviously, if there are problems, it'll I think run each one in a transaction, do other smart things, give you some error messages, I suppose. But basically, it's really not a complicated piece of software at its core. It just, what do we need to do? We need to make some kind of metadata table. We need some metadata table. We need to read some file names, get some file paths in a particular folder, and then we need to run SQL on a database. And I think for an MVP, I'm just going to stick to Postgres. I'll probably use JDBC or something. Maybe I'll use Zio JDBC. I know that's a newer library. I haven't really messed with that yet, but I know that's not, probably in the real version of this, I don't want to have any dependencies on Zio necessarily, so people can run it wherever. And really, there's not going to be too much that I need a full... we don't need a whole bunch of concurrency and parallelism. Once again, the whole project scope is really actually pitifully small. You could think of a million extensions for this, but really at the most basic, it's just like run some files and just track which files you ran. So pretty dang simple. Where it starts to get a little interesting, I suppose, not really that interesting, but the thing that I wanted to do, now that I've sort of given the background of what Flyway is, there was, in this project I was working on, at some point someone cleared out all the earlier migrations, or something. Something happened. So it started at, V100 or something like this. And unfortunately, V100, if you looked at what that did, alter some table.sql, is I think it added a column to some table, to something. But of course, if it's the first migration, that something table does not exist yet. So they happen to be running this against, I guess, always production, or I think a Docker container. They weren't running it locally. But what this means is it's basically impossible to run this project locally, because migrations 1 through 99 are missing, and Flyway is very very strict about running migrations in order, and you can't edit old migrations. It basically stores a hash as well of the content of a SQL file, which is probably good and good. But basically what I want to be able to do is just insert some kind of like snapshot right before, snapshot 99, set up database, and kind of, just maybe there, right before 100, have a one SQL script that just does what SQL scripts 1 through 99 did. Or potentially just delete everything and just use the most up-to-date schema and then continue to add migrations from there. So it's basically collapse history. So I think snapshot is a reasonable name for this because it's kind of similar to, what, I don't know, I was recently looking at raft algorithms or other sort of event sourcing algorithms. You're getting these little diffs, these little messages one at a time, and we can kind of think of each migration as a little diff, a small message, and how to fold leftover migrations to get our most up-to-date schema. The problem with this in both worlds, with event sourcing and migrations, is eventually you have just so many of these little events that it becomes expensive or just ugly to have so many little migrations, and you just care about, let's just snapshot that state after 1,000 events, 1,000 migrations, and just start folding from that beginning. And it turns out that Flyway does have a feature, and they call it like a baseline, which, fine, that's a name. I think I prefer snapshot, but it's a name. And it's basically this, that you do something exactly like that. You just have a SQL file, and it'll ignore previous migrations, or you can delete them. Anyway, it works as you want it to work. We'll have to obviously think of the details. But you have to upgrade to like a team plan to get that. And I don't know. I'm not going to curse on this stream, but, functor them for hiding such a very trivial feature. Like, none of this is hard. I could probably do this all tonight, at least a simple, crappy version of it. And I probably won't, because I'm going to be talking and rambling and get self-conscious, and eventually my brain's going to rot. But this seems like a weekend scoped project. I'm sure Flyway has a billion other fancy features that they can, use to justify their corporate support costs or what have you. And most giant corporations will probably want to keep using Flyway or Liquibase. I'm not trying to put them out of business by any means. I'm just saying for sort of small, humble applications that just want this basic feature, we could probably come up with a pretty decent solution right away. There are also some other ideas that we can explore after we get this sort of basic MVP down. But we just need to do this basic stuff. Then we can add snapshotting if we want to. Bonus, these are stretch goals. And then stretch goals. And then there's also sort of, someone suggested, and this is something I was thinking about as well, which is sort of automatic down migrations / like rollback migrations. So if you have one migration, let's just go here, is a SQL script for creating a user table. Generally, you have this thing where you can add these migrations, you can run them basically one way, but then what if you want to go back to a prior state? Well, you have all these events coming in that basically tell you how to move from, state 0, let's say, to state 3. But then, so after each one of these, our schema is going to be in one of these other states. But what if you want to go back from schema 3 to schema 1? Let's say you screwed something up. Let's say you want to edit this migration. Well, it's kind of difficult to do that with Flyway, I think, out of the box. Maybe they have some tools. I haven't done it quite yet. But in Rails, they had a way of basically, you didn't write SQL. You wrote some special Railsy DSL in Ruby, which had its own problems. But they were basically invertible, reversible migrations. So when you ran this migration up, it would create the table. But when you ran this migration down, it would delete the table. So a lot of SQL commands have sort of reasonable inverses, and we could make it not a semi-ring, just a ring. No, I forget. We can come up with a categorical name for it, but we just need a way of inverting these things. And as a bonus, what we could do is basically parse the actual raw SQL and see, hey, if it's one of these obvious, clean, invertible commands, we can then synthesize maybe a V1 down or something, come up with some stupid naming convention, or call this U1 and D1. I don't know. Well, we'll come up with some silly thing, I'm sure. And it would just, delete table users. So you could run these up and you can run these down. Maybe you could do that automatically. Maybe it's some CLI command. But yeah, overall, invertible automatic down migrations / invertible whatever migrations. That would all be fancy and not too difficult. And then just generally, I think something that I want to do is just have like nice errors and I don't know, just a nice CLI experience. That's not really hard to compete with, unfortunately, in anything out there, because everything is awful error messages in the world of software. There are a few exceptions, and generally, what are some exceptions? I think the Elm programming language, the Rock, which programming language which kind of came off of Elm, and then I guess Rust is some pretty good error messages. Maybe there's some other like little tools here and there, but that's kind of what I look to when I want to get inspiration for good error messages. And I've stolen their ideas in doing stuff like the macro error messages I worked on. And people really appreciate that. And it's just not that much work, to be honest. And it's so nice. Yeah. So that's the plan. Just a lot of notes for now. There's some things to decide. I might just make arbitrary decisions, but let me check back in the chat because I've just been talking for a while. For what it's worth, I found that 1080. Squitch. I'll look at Squitch. Thank you. Great idea. Isomorphic is a little different. Isomorphic would be we have like two representations of the same data, or two equal representations. Two basically structures that contain the same information, if you will. So like a Boolean and either 0 or 1. So if we just have a set of just 0 and 1, that's basically the same. It is the same cardinality as a Boolean. They both have two possible values, true, false, 0, 1, no matter what you call them, even if they're not technically equivalent. Oops, I've added a bookmark, go away. They are still isomorphic because they have the same, in set theoretical terms, they have the same cardinality, that both sets are the same size, but really at the core level they have the same information. They're capable of representing the same information, provided that you translate back and forth between them. You have some sort of one-to-one mapping between each of the two values, basically. So it just means you can encode and decode. So we would want something invertible, which is, if we give this an algebraic law, which is fun, it's almost like the rules of monoid, right? If we imagine we have some kind of empty element, right, and we sort of combine that with some other element, we know with the monoid law you get, this is like the empty left rule or whatever, you get back that other element. Basically empty just provides no information and just passes through. So if it were like literally a times 1, we just get a. So for under multiplication, the identity element is what it's also called, is 1, etc. That's for the monoids, but it's not quite invertibility. For invertibility, it would be, let's think. Well, if you have something, I'm not sure if this is exactly correct because these values are inverses of each other, but I know that is correct, because if you add, yes, if you have some value, right, and you add its inverse, then you're going to get back, that identity element. Yeah, that's what it is. You get back 0. So if you add 1 to -1, you get back 0. So 1 would kind of be the up migration, and then if you, after that, applied to the schema the down migration, you're going to get back a schema that basically existed at the state of the up migration. So you're going to get back whatever that original value is. I'm not that experienced with this stupid stuff. I was just kind of going off of a joke, but just to make it clear, basically we want to be able to, if we have these two things cancel each other out, bang, they explode, matter and antimatter, and yeah, we want to undo the up migration. Basically, I think it's probably fairly intuitive just to say that. Sometimes getting into the math precision makes things less intuitive. It's a bit of a trade-off. Anyway, what am I talking about? I'm just going crazy. Cool. Let's see, how delayed is this thing? Okay, there I am making my stupid ASCII art. So, great. I will delete all isomorphism metaphors, and let's just try to do something. I don't really care. Just want to, some people are really good at planning ahead. I guess I take the startup approach, and I just like slinging code at the wall and seeing how it feels. And we can always refactor, because we're not going to write too much code. Because once again, this problem is pretty damn easy at its core. Like, I actually am somewhat perplexed as to how many paid products there are. I don't know who pays for Flyway. I guess it does some fancy things at the big level. It looks like Liquibase also has some kind of like dashboards, but really we don't need a server for this. I don't need to pay for server costs. This can be a very minimal library. And I think following the 80-20 rule, I'm pretty sure, what I've sketched out here is like everything I've ever needed. Maybe there's some other complicated bonuses or stretch goals that would be nice to have, but I can't imagine any of them adding too much complexity. Obviously, limiting to just Postgres is going to simplify things, maybe, but with JDBC, that shouldn't really matter too much. In fact, what I write won't be limited to Postgres, really, or will be very easily expandable, because we're just going to be processing SQL files and throwing them into some kind of JDBC connection. So I don't think that really matters. Yeah. Okay. So let's actually write some code. I will Command Tab over here. Sometimes, but let's just get some. Let's throw my notes down here. Random, ugly notes. Very ugly notes. Now they're all smushed together. Things we need. Metadata. Read some files. Run SQL. So yeah, maybe I can steal some of these things we need and come up here. Okay, well, it's a metadata table. We need to create that eventually. It's always good. I don't know, when designing some things, to just think in terms of nouns and verbs, basically some classes, some traits, essentially, or what we want to do. Like, right, so we definitely want some kind of database manager. It doesn't matter the name right now. We can, Command Option R, rename this in our code base in a minute. But we basically just want to be able to run some dang SQL code, a SQL string. We don't even have to worry about escaping this, because it's going to be code that we run from a user-written file. Run SQL. Maybe I can be fancier and say execute SQL. We can execute some SQL. And I have imported Zio, so I'm just going to use that just for now. Later on, we can strip it out, because I doubt we'll need really anything fancy. But just so I can type Scala how I'm used to typing Scala, I'm gonna use this. And we're probably going to use Zio JDBC for now. But once again, we don't really need any fancy features, because we're just slinging a chunk of text at a JDBC connection. So that's what that's going to do, right? We need to run SQL on a database. So we're going to have something. Obviously, when we create this, we have to make sure that we create to the right, connect to the actual JDBC connection. So I'm just going to delay on that, pretend we can do this, because that's how I like to work. Just build interfaces and connect them, and then fill in the boring details later on. Okay, we're going to also need, maybe I'll just throw all these verbs in here for now. We sort of need to get back some kind of get metadata. Maybe that's even too vague. Metadata. We're going to have something. We'll let other methods force us to decide what information should be stored in here. So basically, we need to know some questions we'll need to ask at some point. Some methods we'll need to call. Essentially, information we'll need to gather is what migrations have we run already, or maybe just the simplest, like what's the most recent ran migration. Yeah, what's the most recently run migration? I don't know. What's the most recent migration? Let's just do that. That's a question, which could be a method. And we'll, I guess, make this a little more idiomatic later to say recent migration. Remove the question mark. So maybe I could even ask that instead of getting back some metadata that stores that. I don't know how much information we'll need exactly. That's why we like to be just very loose at this level. we're also going to need that file of migrations, right? We'll need a folder of migrations. And so yeah, we're going to have a single migration. And maybe it'll have some ID. That's something to be determined. Some, monotonically increasing integer, or maybe it should just be, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Not entirely sure what that should be. We need a name string, maybe. And then we also need, maybe instead of the name, it should just be the path, the full path that we find. Something like this. Because we're going to need to just read from that file and throw it into JDBC. Maybe we don't care about the name. Maybe we want both. I don't know. It depends. Maybe for error handling. Some ideas. I know some difficulties that crop up with migration files. If we'd say one problem I had, and I think when using, I forget what tool it was, but I don't think it was Flyway. Maybe it was. I don't really recall. At some past job. If you're working, on a team with other people, chances are, if your previous migration on master or on main was V7 or whatever, did something, then there are probably a couple issues in Jira. And if you're, working on some full stack application, probably lots of your changes involve making migrations. So chances are, concurrently, a few users, it always seemed to be 2 or 3. I'm working on the feature where we need to add timestamps to something. And another user is adding, another developer is adding, I don't know, a new index to a table, something boring for they're doing some performance work. And they tend to have 2 PRs, and if we're going with this sort of ID-based migration index, they're going to both have V8 there. And obviously that's going to make Flyway or whatever other database tool, including Hours, sad, because it's using those to differentiate these and to track what it's already run. And to give some sense of order to this does make sense. Because, it really doesn't matter what order your database migrations are in, so you probably want that to be deterministic and obvious, and just increasing numbers is, I'd say, fairly obvious and self-evident. And so there's a little bit of conflict resolution here. And usually, whoever wins first, whoever's pull request was merged first wins, and then the loser has to, in their Git conflicts, I guess it wouldn't even create a Git conflict, so you have to be careful. They just have to notice that and increase the thing manually. And maybe you'll have a sequence of them, and you maybe made a few migrations, and you have to do all those manually. So it could be nice to have a tool. And I think I did this at some point, like a few years ago, made a really stupid script, probably in Haskell, that just prompted you, hey, we noticed a conflict, and prompted you to rename this. Or maybe someone else did that. I have no idea. My code memory is getting all wobbly, and just do that automatically. So that's a I can go back down to stretch goals. Any kind of silly quality of life thing is just that would probably fall into nice errors, because I think Flyway just tells you, hey, I'm confused and I hate you, and I'm not even sure if it gives you any sort of hint at all as to what's going on. It's just there's been a problem here. Maybe it's not for that. Maybe it gives you a nice V9 has already been run, but I know there are many experiences with Flyway where it just dumps out red alert, and you have to go and figure out, okay, what the hell isn't it happy about? It doesn't give you any hints as to resolve it. So for one possible error is duplicate, if accidentally duplicated version IDs, interactively prompt user to resolve ambiguity. Say which one would you like me to increment for you? And then we'll increment that one, and maybe if there are other ones stacked beyond it, push everything else back. That could be nice. Okay, I'm going to check the chat. It's a group. It is a group, right? Yeah. Groups are invertible. Duh, because, reflections and things. Oh, wow, it's really not too far. Down migrations are hard for destructive updates. Yes, if you drop a column. So. Oh, hey, Brian. So down migrations are hard. Well, they could be hard. Let's see what you said. Are hard for destructive updates if you drop a column that all data has to stay somewhere until you decide you won't need to roll back. Oh, yeah, so you'll lose all the data. So if you use your migrations for any kind of fixture data, that's definitely going to be gone unless you, I don't know, take a snapshot of your database. Yeah. So and with that hard problem, blah blah blah. I think for our MVP, and maybe for all versions, is just say, oh, okay, we don't do that. I think with Ruby on Rails with active records, some of the commands are invertible, as I mentioned, like create. The obvious inversion for that is delete. But if you write a delete, if you say like drop table, you know, users, it will not create an inversion for that. So with create, you get the down migration. Drop table does not have a down migration of create table users. I mean, technically you could at that point when you write this, just take a look at your current schema up to that point and see, okay, what are all the fields for users and add them back. But yeah, you're not going to get the data back. And maybe that matters in production. You probably couldn't really use that. Maybe that would be useful locally, but yeah, if there's any ambiguity and it's not obvious what to do, I mean, that is a stretch kind of goal for now anyway. We're not going to do that right away, but we can just ignore it. I think not doing, like picking a level of magic is nice. So I think maybe what we could do for this is not automatically generate these inversions, but maybe with a CLI tool or something, or a setting, I don't know, when you, maybe you could just say, hey, create an inversion for this or something, create a rollback or down, I don't know, some kind of CLI thing where it will try to, if it can, look at all the things that you've done and invert them. I don't know. We'll think about that in the future. Think of all the edge cases. Yeah, what if you do a rename? Well, renames would actually be pretty easy because rename, you generally have to give both names, this to that, and that can go back that to this. Yeah. But yeah, if the problem's too hard, we'll just remove the problem from our solution space, I suppose. Yeah, MongoDB support, that would definitely be a stretch goal for now, just because I'll try not to paint ourselves into any corners. I'll try to keep like a vague mind towards, you know, not super coupling everything to SQL and Postgres. I think for the most part, that's going to be okay as we keep relatively gentle coupling between these different components. Obviously saying ExecuteSQL, but eventually these can all become like type parameters, right? We want some, we're going to be executing something on something, some kind of command on some kind of database. So maybe for now we'll hard code JDBC, but we can eventually just abstract over all that and bring in traits and other things for, you know, it shouldn't really matter. If we want to run some migration on some database, we need to store some kind of metadata in said database. So we'll need different ways of saving the metadata into different backends. We'll need different ways of parsing different query languages to invert them if that's a feature, or maybe we'll just limit that to some things. But for now, you know, I think it would be nice to have a usable solution for simple problems rather than sort of trying to bite off more than, you know, maybe I could chew alone and trying to like hit every solution, especially because there already are like a lot of things out there. Basically, my goal is to have a totally free, totally open source, simple working version that just does basically the 90% of the 80-20 rule. Like it satisfies that 80% of what you actually need most of the time and does it well. And doesn't stuff, you know, 70% of that 80 is free, and then the last 10% of it is behind this arbitrary corporate paywall that you're never going to want to use for most projects. And that was my experience. It's like, okay, I want snapshotting, or I want your baseline migrations, and oh, I have to now pay some weird amount or enter some contract like just for that. Like I could do this in a day or two, and that's why we're here. Rage-based development. Okay, cool. But I'm talking a lot and taking a lot of notes, and not writing code. That seems to be what happens sometimes when I stream. But I'm procrastinating in case I embarrass myself somehow. But no, let's write some actual methods and do some things. Maybe even before I break things up into traits, you know. Let's just do it like this. I'm just going to be very silly. We're going to hard code everything right away. Another way to write code. I'm even going to comment out metadata. Just to start hard-coded and then add abstractions when they make sense. And let's not prematurely abstract and keep everything really flexible and really simple for now. And then we can harden it later. Okay, but we definitely want some way of reading. So this is like read migrations. And that's basically just going to be a task of a list of migrations. That's that. And so this will just read from that user's folder. I mean, eventually we want to make this configurable probably, but for now we'll just pick some kind of sacred path, source, main, resources, migrations, and just parse out these files in there. And we're going to have to pick some formatting and just get the name out. There are a couple different options we have. I know Rails, I believe, uses timestamps. So whatever, what day is it? Oh, it's 23, Jesus. 0106, and then maybe even it has some kind of time up to the hour and minute. I don't know. What hour is it? 0541, because probably that'll be enough to disambiguate. Maybe you add a few seconds in there too. I don't know. At that point, it may as well be an epoch time. I don't know, but whatever. That's obviously uglier aesthetically, but it does give you some ordering in it. That's one way of removing the fact that two people might do V8, because even if there's a Git conflict, or sorry, two people opening pull requests at the same time, they're going to be ambiguous. And I guess whoever happened to actually run on their local system, or whatever their system clock said, a CLI tool for creating a SQL file. So we're going to have some, migraine, new, migration, whatever. And then it's going to just, create one of these. You say add index, and it'll do this for you with the current timestamp. I like that it removes the ambiguity, but I actually kind of don't like that it removes the ambiguity, because then the ordering of these things is kind of just random, and maybe it does matter, and maybe that doesn't make any sense and it shouldn't matter. I don't know. I feel like for now it could be cool just to have the versioning, I guess. I have to think through the edge cases. I'm not sure if anyone has any strong opinions on that. But I guess because I've been using Flyway for a while, this just makes more sense. Maybe I'll do up one and then down and D. I believe something uses that. Maybe it's evolutions. We'll figure something out. Nothing's perfect. So we're just going to pick something arbitrarily and then see how it feels, and then see if we can think of better ideas. So yeah, we're basically going to read these things. We probably want to know if it's an up or down migration as well eventually, or maybe also have a down migration path. There are other things that we could do as well. I mean, it's kind of silly to use just a list of files, of SQL files, and try to encode some bit of like ordering and information in there. I mean, if this whole thing is mediated by a CLI tool, we could also stuff in migrations dot, everyone's favorite file format, or something, TOML, I don't know, JSON, some kind of configuration file that stores more information. So it's not like we have to really encode so much in here, but this is just how it's been done, and it's kind of silly, but I'm not necessarily trying to like come up with the unison of a migration tool where I rethink it from the very foundations. I just want something very basic and minimal that works. So maybe we'll just stick with the existing patterns. Great. And sorry for flipping back and forth so much if you are watching. That causes headaches. And also I adjust my brightness a lot, apparently. I've noticed in the comments of the symposiums, people are like, why, like, great video and all, but why is this constantly on the screen? It's because I don't know. I do that for some reason. I'm constantly adjusting my brightness. I don't know why. It's a good way to be like prompted that you have some kind of minor OCD. Okay. But I definitely do have code OCD. Code CD. You can't spell OCD without code. It's at least a little bit. Let's do it. There we go. Vim. Okay. Great. So yeah, we want to read migrations. We want to get metadata, or really get. Not even that. So this is, yeah. Okay, so I'm trying to like think from the bottom up here of some basic tasks we need, but maybe the best way to drive it is to be like, what would it mean to write migrate, right? Task of unit. I have something that I want to migrate. What would this look like? Well, a couple of things. We need to make sure that we're connected to the database, but I think the prerequisites of, this is going to eventually exist on some trait. That trait will have as its some kind of dependency when you go to construct that trait, a connection to the database already. And we can make some constructor where it needs, so we can basically assume at this point we are already connected to the database. We don't have to do that at this point. But what we do want to check to see is, and maybe this could also be done separately, but for now we'll just kind of plug everything together. We want some method calling create metadata if not exists, if doesn't exist, if needed. I guess if not exists is the SQL kind of way of saying something like that. So we want to create the metadata if it doesn't exist. Maybe that could also be done after we connect, because we need that metadata so we can read from it and we can get the current migrations. And really what this is going to be doing is just like latest migration, get latest migration ID or something like this. And then we want to go through we want to read all the migrations, read migrations. And then, hey, let's create a parameterless method, get latest migration ID task of an int for now. And we should definitely create some kind of migration ID extends any val ID int. I'm not going to make that a long because that's too many migrations. People shouldn't, maybe I should make it a long, doesn't matter. But who cares? Migration ID. Great, so we're going to get that. And then we're just going to, I don't know, we could be very silly about this. Migrations to run. Migrations dot drop while, ID is less than migration ID. And we can create a pointless ordering for our migration ID. Maybe that's one of the problems with, I'd like to have this, but it sure would be nice if we had some kind of more built-in deriving mechanism. I know there's Derivo and all that, but it sure would be nice if we had just kind of a Haskell-esque, like just give me, can we have a better any val? Maybe I should look into opaque types and stuff for Scala 3 solutions, but for now, whatever. Implicit val ordering, and I'm just going to say, yeah, that. I really like Copilot for this dumb boilerplate. And apparently I've done this wrong. Maybe I have done this wrong. You know what? Yeah, because I think less than doesn't work like that. I'll do it like this. I like that. Okay, let's do that for now. So drop while it's less than or equal to the latest migration, and then we're just going to get the remaining migrations, assuming that read migrations, or maybe I should be consistent here and say get migrations is out of order. And then we want to just run each of these migrations. So zia.forEach, and not for each par because that would be awful. Migrations, and then run migration, or what is it called? Yeah, def run migration. It's going to take a migration, task of unit, and we're just going to say ExecuteSQL. We need to read the file, so let's get the contents, contents of the file. So zia.readFile, migration.path, and then we will say ExecuteSQL with our contents. So the most silly thing in the world. And eventually we're probably going to want to make sure that this actually, if it blows up or runs them partially, it's all in a transaction, or we track at which point, maybe in between each time, once I successfully run the SQL, that we update our metadata table, in some way, update metadata successfully ran. I don't entirely know what to do, but we want to update metadata with this migration. We could think about what that needs to look like later on. Task of unit. But what this should do is something. Store in DB that we've run this migration successfully. Store in metadata table, obviously metadata table. Okay, and I've done that wrong, obviously. Maybe someone's pointed that out to me, but I needed to do migrations to run. Oh, I can make the text a little bigger for sure. I'm sorry about that being so small. Have you thought about how merging or checking out other branches will work? That's a great question. Okay, cool. So is that, let me know if that font size is better. This font size. Too big, too small. And yeah, let's think about that. Well, yeah, so how, let me steal this thought so I can take some notes under it. So maybe there's a better way of doing this. What's ZWSP? Has Zio added their own special whitespace character, Zio whitespace character? I wouldn't be surprised. Have you thought about how merging or checking out other branches will work? So I'm guessing that's, I mean, currently for Flyway, if I'm understanding correctly, right, we're on main. We check out feature 17. We add 3 migrations. we migrate them on our local database, and then we go back to main. Well, now these 2 tables are out of whack, and if we're using Quill or Skunk or something, it's obviously not going to be able to read the current data if we've deleted or renamed fields. And so basically, I think what we really just want to do at that point is, I don't know, roll back. I think for development, though, I mean, maybe at that point you could just reset your database. And if you have fixed your data, that should probably be a migration. I don't know if maybe there's a great solution out there, because you can't really roll back. I mean, you could roll back before switching branches. If we have rollbacks and you just roll back, so you added those migrations, you've mucked around a little bit, then you can just roll back and then go back to main. So that'd be one solution. It would be nice to make that easier and simpler. I don't think Flyway has anything special for that. It's just oh, well, if you're working on a shared, Postgres instance, I have my little database tab here, and I connect to some local Postgres that I have running. You're just all mucking with the same data. That may not be the best flow. Okay, good. Yeah, I got rid of that side panel. So I have no special thoughts on this beyond, don't make it worse than what it currently exists, but it's currently a manual process. But yeah, if you have some special pains or use cases you can think of, just let me know, and that would be great to make that better than what currently exists. I probably should get some also, it's always good when working on a product to have an intimate familiarity with the pain, with the space. And I haven't done, as I mentioned, too much stuff beyond basic Flyway. I really just need its most basic features. And thinking about it, it just doesn't seem like it's that complicated. Ideally, the ideal user experience would be let this save whatever, because I'm used to Zio. We have some app, you have some object main, you're doing your thing, and in your val whatever run bit, the first thing you can do is migration dot run or whatever, migraine dot migrate, and it will just do it for you. Or I mean, if we are using Zio, we're going to have our program, and then we're going to do something like provide, and we could also make a migraine migrate a layer that will just do that for you. And maybe this will require some kind of migraine config .make, which will just take your JDBC info, or maybe it'll work off of an existing layer that provides a database connection or something like that. I'm not sure. We have to figure that out. But that'll be like a nice high level ideal integration with Zio, for instance. But we can also just have a less Zio-ified version, because I can imagine like I don't think I'm going to be doing anything terribly concurrent here. I could probably just use no effect framework. Oh my god, this is like barely any work. Like this is literally most of what we need. Obviously, we need to like hook into some thing and read some files and do some basic parsing, and all the niceties and the error messages. That's where the fun will come into play. But like the core work is so nothing. I just once again can't imagine why there are so many companies built around this. But I'll stop complaining about them. And I'll think so. But complaining is a good way to kick the can down the road. I am prevaricating, dilating, coming up with synonyms, synonymizing. I am going to get some water because I can only do so much of this meditation voice. I'll be right back. Oh, this is a great opportunity. Check this out. Oh, that tasted good. Ha ha ha. Hello, Vlad. I'm sorry, you are out. What kind of developer are you? Leaving the house. Okay, water really helps, and maybe soon I'll start talking normally again. Okay, cool. So, now to actually do more stuff. So here's some very basic sketches. I mean, I might just keep everything in this file until this in the same silly object, until I even get it working with some very basic scripts, and then we could start breaking it apart. So let's do that. Things that we need. Whenever I'm feeling, here's just a general tip. It's nice just to continue getting some momentum. So I always like to shift around, levels of abstraction, levels of complexity with tasks. So yeah, I'll just go here and make a resources folder. New directory. I should have a shortcut for this, but I generally don't make a resources folder too often. And then I should have done just the slash thing. I feel like an amateur. Migrations. And then we can throw in some new text files. So v1 create users.sql. Oh, wrong comment. Create users table. Oh, what is it? It's dash dash. Why can't there be a universal comment character? Create users table. I'm just gonna use Copilot. And because it doesn't really matter. Come on, Copilot. Give me some random data. Oh. You're not gonna do it for me. Enable completions. Create users table. Why? I don't want to do it myself. Create users table. Users have a UUID ID, a username, and an email. Let's not even give them a password. There we go. Okay, it needed some guidance. Okay, so there's just some long emails. Text, sure, I don't care. Great. So we have users, and we'll just start with that. Actually, we'll do one more. Create a new file, v2. Create posts.sql. Create posts. Okay, fine. I feel like it used to be a little more creative here. I wonder if they have configured its prompts to be a little less random and to respond more to guidance. So I guess I have to think now like a real human being. So we'll go with title, ID, title, and user ID. come on, give it to me. But I would like a UUID, please. And then user ID, integer, references, users ID. There we go. No, that will exist by this time. Oh no, that's a UUID. And great. Good, good. Go back to here. Cool. Oh, yeah. Now that is true. I'm just trying to commit as much ZO2 code as I can to the internet to improve Copilot. But yeah, that is a bit of a bummer. Hopefully with the next go-around things, I don't know when they're going to update their training set yet. But that's okay. But yeah, that is an interesting thing. As AI becomes more powerful, if it's always trained on past data, it might kind of cause a bias towards old paradigms, old patterns. Especially once we lose the ability to think creatively and our brains atrophy. Cool. Anyway, so now we have a couple of silly files that we can use. And yeah, we can just pick any of these things to work on. So migrations, I basically just want to, gosh, can I just, I don't want to totally rely on Copilot here, but I really, if I were doing this by myself just to create a POC, I would just tell it to read the Scala source files from the migrations folder. And obviously we need to sort of parse these things. Because yeah, I always forget exactly the, how do we get all the contents of a folder? Get all file names within resources / migrations. Come on, do it. No. Like, hey, that's not bad actually. But now actually do it. Do the code. Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, zio.attempt, and we'll do it in here. I think it's going to be whatever scala.io.source from resource. Oh no, because that would be reading the, yeah, we need to use like Neo, and I always forget their awful API. Another side project would be to build like an alternative to Neo. Java.neo.file.files or .paths. Do I need a file system? Paths. Let's see what I can do. Do I need a file system? Oh, there we go. Yeah, this is, yeah, I don't want to memorize this. Why would I want to memorize this? I'm sorry for shamefully using Copilot here instead of having committed this to memory, but that's fine. Don't really need to map that to a runtime exception, but that's clever. Oh, it even did the parsing of the file name for me. I was gonna not have it do that for me and be a little, dignified, but let's see if that makes sense. Splitting on an underscore. Get file name to string, sure. We might want to parse out the bit after the underscores and remove the SQL. I mean, that's basically the same thing. Oh, this removed SQL. Yeah, whatever. Whatever. Yeah, we'll just do this for now. Let's just see if it works. Where's my object end? Extends Zio app default. Val run. And I'm just going to say get migrations.debug migrations. And hopefully I didn't set any vals equal to triple question marks, so everything runs. And hopefully the Neo code it wrote is not degenerate. And something's wrong. Oh yeah, because it did split there and then got v2. Split v head. I don't know. Drop a car. We're eventually going to want to have like nicer parsing of these error messages, but there we go. We have a list of migrations. Got the migration ID, the file name, yeah. Wait, where's the file name? And then it's the full path to the file, so we could read that back out. And you know what? What is that? A path, actually. That's a path, isn't it? Let's say folder path, migrations path. This is going to be just paths, path. And sure, I'll just store it if I'm going to go full on Neo mode. Let me just store that in my migration as the actual path type. Java Neopath, yeah. Cool. So I will now check if you have mocked me for my reliance. Easy to use AI to create new patterns. Ask AI for Scala 4. Okay. Great. So there's a list of migrations. And for each of them, I'm going to run a migration, which is pretty basic. And we're going to, yeah. What did I need? So now I could get migrations. Get migrations is down. Get latest migration ID. Well, now for this, we're going to need to actually, and for creating the metadata table, for doing all of this stuff, we're going to actually need a connection to a real database. And I'm going to need to have some kind of database library. And so I think I mentioned there's some kind of Zio JDBC that John was working on, but I'm not quite sure. Zio JDBC. I'm sure it's good and nice and simple. It's probably even more than we need, but just for now, I mean, really what I need to do is just, it's so simple. I wonder if I even need any of that. I really just need to, this is not something that needs to run in production. We need to run this once at the beginning. It's not like we are going to do this. You're not doing thousands of migrations per second. This doesn't have big performance requirements. It's so basic that really I just need a JDBC connection. I don't need a Hikari connection pool. I could probably just push this all through. I actually don't want a connection pool. Or maybe I do. It doesn't really matter. So maybe at this point, it would be nice to have trait database manager. I'm not sure. We'll put these functions in here, or I'll just do a case class. Final case class database manager. Be very hacky. And this is where we'll throw ExecuteSQL. And we'll also throw all this, anything that's going to be interacting with our metadata table in here. And yeah. And for now, I'll just say manager equals database manager. Database manager, and I'll do question marks. So I can just throw this stuff in here. Eventually, we're going to put all this in its own trait or class or whatever, but for now, let's just do that. Great. So, we probably want a data source, I think. Java X SQL, maybe we want a data source. Or a connection. I guess we could use a connection as well. Is a data source a connection? No. We can get a connection from a data source. I know Quill uses data source, and that's probably, I know it's subclassed by like Hikari connection pools and things. I'm not really sure which is more idiomatic for Scala. I will check here. Cool. Great. So I'm not sure. I'm just going to say data source. What can we do? Well, I need to get a connection for sure. At which point, actually, all this is going to be done at the beginning. I really could just do I want a connection? I don't know. Let's just get a connection for now. Con. And can we write some, write SQL? Native SQL. Native SQL, what's that? It converts the system into SQL grammar. You know what? This is where Copilot's going to help me. I want to write this on the thing. It's thinking. Of course, I need to create a statement and then edit the statement. It's a mutable object. This is where Copilot is very beautiful because I don't need to look through weird Java APIs. Don't think I want to execute it just yet. Oh, maybe I do. Wait a second. No, because the statement... that's not quite it. I know it's not execute because I think that executes a given SQL statement. Maybe I did. Maybe that is it. That's such a weird. Wait, what? The statement object for sending statements to the database. You just create the statement with no data and then, oh, preparing the statement. Wow. I'm not sure. Maybe I want prepare statement. And then the statement and execute. Okay, that's it. Yep. Zio.attempt. And technically blocking IO is also what I want. Or just blocking IO. It doesn't really matter. Yeah, that's pretty silly. And I guess I could connection.close. Maybe? I think that's probably how I want to do this. Should probably do a whole try finally thing here, and I'm sure this is what Zio JDBC would do for me. But eventually we'll just handle that ourselves with low-level, boring stuff. I guess I don't even need Zio here, but I have my habits. To force big copilot completion, open one braces of the function and let it complete. Ah, okay, that's good to know. Yeah, they're all these. The patterns are always a little changing. I also have I think I have a shortcut somewhere. There we go. There's this like command that'll open a sidebar and give you more complete suggestions as well as variations. So it gets kind of increasingly verbose as well. So it can like do the whole file for you. But yeah. Okay. And yeah, so let's do something. Let's just do, what fields is our metadata table? Okay, so our metadata table. Metadata table. Create metadata table. Create metadata table. Task unit. Okay, let's see what it does. Migrations, there's an ID, serial, primary key, the name, and the created at. That's pretty fine. I think there's also like there's a hash that we might want to store of the file's contents, just for security later. That's kind of a bonus too. I don't know. May not even include that for now. And I definitely want to get this a better name than just migrations. Let's say migraine metadata. Migraine metadata. Cool. Oh man, I could just do that. Yeah. Why would I need to? I don't need to check if it exists. I could just run that. Let's do that. Okay. That's pretty easy, and I already have an execute SQL statement, so this is all fairly boring and obvious, and I feel silly. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll just trim this. I really don't like the whole like, what is it, pipe strip margins style. I don't know why. Maybe this is unreadable, but those pipes throw me off, and it makes it annoying. So I just generally go with this. Okay, so create metadata if needed. That looks fine to me. Maybe I'll say now if not exists, just to go with the SQL syntax. And create metadata table. If not exists, will just be really boring and verbose. Get latest migration ID, and this is just going to be a sort. And yeah, I'll just let it do the thing. Of course, yeah. Now it needs to do this, order by ID. Oh, I guess the IDs should be in serial order. Otherwise, we could throw an error, or I could just do it by created at timestamp. Okay. So I'm going to get, yeah, I've done some JDBC stuff before, and this looks correct. But hey, I am relying fully on this stuff. Do I have to close my statement? What does that even mean, to close a statement? What is this? What is this API? It's such a weird model. How about a parent migration? Ooh. CRDTs, I see. So I think I see what you're getting at. Maybe, is that kind of what you're getting at? Like, to have, if you make a new migration, which one came before it at the time you wrote it, perhaps. But I'm not sure if that's what you mean. I think, if that is what you mean, but please do clarify and correct me if that's not what you mean at all. I think it just could be simplest for now just to require them to be done in order. I mean, it's not clever, but being not clever could be a benefit, right? It just gives you that explicitness. And when dealing with data, you know, it is a pretty big amount of trust you have to put into a migration system. And combining like production user data with any amount of magic is kind of frightening. So I kind of do like the idea of just going explicit, even if that sometimes creates ambiguities that you have to resolve manually, forcing the data to kind of become fully explicit and ordered would be helpful, I think. Yeah, I'm not sure, though. And also, I'm not sure when you said that. I got to get a screen where it's I could see live chats. Okay. Oh wow. Okay. So yeah, people are joining and leaving. Welcome. If you're new, working on a modern migration database tool. It's not really modern so much. It's just more minimal. That's why that came first. So we're building basically a poor man's flyway, quite literally, because it's all going to be free, basically. And there's not going to be any interesting features behind a paywall, which was my experience essentially that motivated this very simple project, because it's really only like 50 lines of code to get something that kind of works for the most basic purposes. So yeah, just have some very ugly raw code here right now. And yeah, I probably can't do it too much longer, but I will do a little longer. Maybe another half an hour or something, get it to actually work with this basic use case. So let's see, where are we? So now I have a database manager, though I need a data source, and I need, that's really it. Create metadata table if not exists. Yeah, okay, let's make one of these database managers. I'm gonna make a companion object, and I'm going to say make, and I guess username string, you know, for now, we're gonna just go super silly. Data source, I forget what am I doing? Data source. I know there's lots of ways of creating a data source, but of course, because it's Java, we don't get to just do that. We have to like do some kind of data source creator thing and see what uses data source or extends it to factory, a data source factory. So I'm going to rely, because I don't know how to figure out the right factory to use. Once again, a pattern here is just to tell Copilot to do it. Copilot is my Java intern and knows all of Java very well. Cool. So I'm going to say create a data source with the host 5432. I think that's the default one. The user kit. The password kit. Yeah. Let's just do all that for now, and then I'll change it. My password. This is my username and password for all services. So, no, don't do that. Well, that'll be great. Okay, time to see how to create a data source. Java create data source. Oh, creating and deploying data source objects. My eyes. Oh, do you? Oh, because I think I might need like a. How do I do this? Wow, it's really. Maybe I'll need Postgres? Forget how to do this. New MySQL. Ah, yes. This is where a data source is vendor specific. Okay. Postgres data source. Scala. Let's see. I mean, really, OpenAI is just the, or Copilot is really just a slightly better Stack Overflow. Ooh. Gosh, Java, you crazy thing, you. Yeah, I just have to get something in my class path, don't I? Maybe someone on stream knows this. Okay. I know I need a Postgres thing then. I'm just going to type Postgres in here and let it do that magic. And yeah, 42, is that right? Okay. Maybe that's right. And that's not right at all. Yeah, it's not. It's I think it's org.postgres or something. Org. Let's just see. Add Postgres. I'm even using it for this. There we go. And now, yes, now I know it's actually working because the version updating bit of IntelliJ kicked in as well. So let's try to reload this. I feel quite ashamed of all this coding. It's all very hacky and relying on AI and Stack Overflow, but that's what I have to do when I work with Java APIs. Okay, let's see. Where is it? Data source. Data source. Okay, can you do it now? Val data source. No, of course you cannot. Create a data source using Postgres. New data source. Postgres. Data source. No, that's not right at all. Shoot. I'm just going to go back to Stack Overflow because that actually has some context. Driver manager, Java SQL. You need to add this, and then you can connect to a particular database. Wow, really? Java SQL driver manager. Okay. Well, I have that. Val connection string. Yeah, localhost 5432. That's great. /kit. User kit / migraine test / user kit and no password. Too many N's. And then I'll use the driver manager. Oh no, I just get a single connection. There's no data source. Get new data source. No! Data source, why? Why are you difficult? PG simple data source. Oh, that's the one. Now PG data source equals PG simple data source. New PG simple data, shit. But now of course this is Java, so I can't just use that. It has no constructors. I've got to see what. Of course, I need to do it. Something like this. Simple data source. No. How do I create you? Why? Where do you come from? There's the word factory. PG object factory. Oh dear. Oh dear. How to create PG simple data source. Maybe I should just use I could just make one. This is what, man, one of my favorite things about Scala is the companion object pattern, because it's just one place for constructors to live. Set URL. Okay. Do we need to set user and stuff? Kit. Let's keep going. Set database, set password, set. Okay. So we'll make that. I'll call this this database called headache. Okay. Okay, great. So hopefully that is cool. Yeah, I don't know. UIO database manager. So I'm going to get one of those. In fact, for now, I'm not even going to make it effectful. And yeah, good. Good. So here I will now say database manager dot make. So all hard-coded beautifulness. And let's just see what happens if I down here replace this run with zio.succeed of manager dot, manager dot create metadata table if not exists. I'm quite certain this will explode, but let's see. Yeah, lots of problems. Invalid URL. Kit. Oh yes, I didn't mean to do that. Set username. Let's do that. Oh, it seems to have finished successfully. I'm surprised. Let's connect to database headache with user kit. Database headache does not exist. That's what I would assume. Luckily, I can use this very simple Postgres app. I think I can create a database here. No. Ooh. Forget how to create a new database. All right, let's see if I can open up my terminal here. PSQL, and then create database headache. Nice. And we could try to reload this little database here. And there we go. We have headache, we have public, and we have no tables. That's fine. So I'm guessing something exploded, or it didn't explode. I don't know why it... let me see. ExecuteSQL. So this should just throw an error. So I would have assumed that if that blew up, it would have propagated. But it's possible. I don't know. I closed the statement, or I have no idea. Let's see what happens. Let's try to run it again. Also finished with exit code 0. Do we have any tables now? Default schema public. Public's got no tables. So that did not work. Let me just print some lines. Executing SQL. I did not get that. So that's... Oh, because now this is a one of the dangers when you use an effect system is that you can doubly nest effects. So I'm attempting an effect that is, so it's not doing anything. It was never doing anything. Executing SQL. Okay. Still though, it says it's executing it, but nothing is, oh no, it's there. Yay. Good. Good. So it exists as a table in there. Very hacky, but that's, that's fine. Just trying to get things connected, and then we can make it all pretty at a later date. So basically what I would want to do is manager, on the creation of the manager for now, just create that table so we don't have to worry about it. If we have ever received a valid manager, then it is good to go. And I'm not going to zeoify this with layers and stuff as I would if this were a normal large application, because I'm probably not going to have Zio in it, just so it can be used in a variety of projects, and then I don't have to worry about Zio versioning. I'm just going to try to make it like, blocking Java code, just using the JDBC stuff. So it's very portable, and I don't have to continuously bump versions all the time. So that's really nice. Maybe I'll keep that executing SQL debug statement in there for now. And let's just run. Let's see what happens if I do run migration. So what's it called? Manager.migrate? Oh no, it's just migrate. Let's migrate. I don't know if I don't think I've implemented everything. There's definitely some question marks somewhere. Update metadata. Updating metadata for migration. Any other question marks? Because I could fix that easily. No. All right. Okay, blew up. That's great. Users does not exist. Well, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Because I'm probably getting these migrations in the wrong order. So let's see. Migrations, paths, migration. Great. Paths.map. Now migrations equals migrations.sort by ID. And now that we have an ordering, maybe it'll work now. Look at that. 1, then 2. Great. Of course, if I try to run it again, it's going to explode because it is not tracking anything in our migrations table. So we've just created these tables, but our migrations metadata is empty. So it's just going to continuously try to start again and again and again. So let's actually have update metadata table. And I'll say ran migration for migration. I don't know, let's just do that. Save ran migration? I don't know. Naming's hard. It's gonna just go through here. And just going to have it basically called ExecuteSQL again. Well, I guess I don't really need that whole thing. Let's see. Created at default. No, the ID though, I do want it to be. Maybe I do want that just to be an int. I think serial is kind of int though in Postgres, but if I want this to be portable, I should probably have it be int. Let's see what happens. If I do ID name hash. Oh, look at that to do. That's funny. Yeah, let's stick with that for now. And yeah, now it's going to okay, let's try this again. Oh, it's going to blow up though because yeah, those things still exist. So I'm going to delete these tables real quick. Dropping the tables, running it again, and that worked. And so we should have 2 new tables, and hopefully we have 2 things here. Yeah. And so if I were to run this again, it should succeed and not really do anything. Yay. So it migrated it, I believe. Let's just do a see that debug. Running. I wanted to do migrations length, migrations to run dot length migration. So it's going to say running 0 migrations probably. Yeah. And just to make sure everything else is going to be last ran migration ID. And then found migrations. Good. Oh, it says found 0 migrations. Oh, that's migrations to run. Migrations. Maybe I should name this all migrations. Found 2 migrations, running 0 migrations. And now I should be able to, v3. Add slug to post. Let's be very silly. Alter table. No. Okay. Add slug field to posts table. Sorry, that's so small. But I'm just going to have Copilot throw some silly SQL. Alter table post add column slug varchar. Sure. Not null. And of course, because we have stuff in there, we don't have anything in there, so I don't care about the default value. So now we've added a new migration. If I go back to migraine and migrate this, it should run just that one migration. Yes, found 3, executed 1, hooray. So, wow, I mean, it's truly an MVP, but it's very simple. And yeah, we just clean this up, have it configurable, and make nice interface wrappers so it can just be like a nice layer for ZO projects that you can just throw in your big provide clause at the top of your application, migraine.migrate, and it will have a requirement on some other layer that provides a data source or something like this. And it'll just work. So that'll be cool. Yay. Well, that's an MVP. That's not much, but let me do cd code, cd migraine. Let's, not a Git repository. Let's initialize it. Let's do all the Git stuff. And let's ignore all the bullshit you have to ignore all the time. Target. Yeah, let's ignore target for sure. Did I ignore the project folder? I think I ignored the project folder. That's not what I wanted to do. Yep, I don't want to ignore project. So let me try that one more time. I want to just ignore, no, nothing. Everything is good. Everything is good. I'll even keep those fake migrations in there for now because this is just a silly hack for the time being. And I guess in build SBT, I got to be a good citizen and do com dot, or whatever, io.github.kitlangton, unfortunately, is my long organization name. Version 0.0.1, and that's good for now. We obviously need to do a whole bunch of other stuff, adding tests, adding other features, making it not just only work on this one project. That'll be cool if you can only migrate the test project, but yeah. Init. Push to what? Oh yeah, I have nothing to push, so this is where I generally say gh repo create, push an existing local repository, I call it migraine, do it to my own repository description, a minimalist DB migration manager. And I won't even use the word modern there because I think right now minimalist is all it is. And we'll make it fancier in due time. Visibility public, yes, do it, and then we can view it and rejoice. And we can add a README, and then we can pull down the README, and then we can go to the post and say what are we doing? Yeah, so it begins. Yes. Whip, rather. Very whip. Very, very whip. Okay. So if anyone cares there's the hacky beginnings of something. Yay, claps. Thank you for sticking around, Stuart. I hope that was moderately entertaining. I know I'm sounding a little sleepy. I kind of, this is good to force me to actually, the one really powerful thing about streaming-driven development is that if you are a little lazy, just that public pressure can force you to do at least a little bit of something. So I did the boring work of setting up the databases and a little bit of boring stuff. But that was really fun. And thank you for making it slightly less of a lonely task to get the very basics in there. And I'll probably do this again when I come back with like higher goals and move along down those to-do list lines. But we kind of did the very basic of basic things. And we could start to think of, what do we want to make this actually like nice and usable? Maybe the next step should be just, how do we actually make this usable in someone else's project? So configurable and pretty, and then we can go on to making it nice, and then thinking about snapshotting and the fun automatic invertible migrations. That'll all be cool. So yeah, well, that's it for now. I think I'll de-stream myself before I, lose all brain power. But yeah, thanks for hanging out. I'll read you a bedtime story. I'll try to think of more entertaining things to do in the future. But yeah, I hope you're well, Stuart, and yeah, let me know if you stream out there. It'd be good to join and heckle from the peanut gallery. Though your heckling is not heckling at all, it's very, very nice and helpful. Helpling. yeah, thank you for stopping by, Anthony, and take care. Other folks who are still here, I don't see like a who is here anymore, but I know 5 people are. Probably one of them is me. So goodbye, me, Stuart, Anthony, Vlad, if you're still here, Scott, and yeah, see you around. Have a great weekend, everybody. I just now you can watch me find the button, the big blue button. Okay, bye everyone. Oh no, no longer.